Ready to begin our program? I've been told Chayim would say we're already 2 minutes late. Thank you. Tonight, we have gathered to pay tribute to a remarkable son, husband, father, educator, and friend, Chaim Dimont. When it was time for me to be officially introduced as the new head of school of KHDS, our amazing president, Mr. Dan Katz, said, before I make it official, I would like for you to meet the administration on Zoom. I said, sure, that sounds great. So when I got on to the Zoom session, they said that we've appointed Chaim to be the one to ask you questions. I said, okay. I was a little nervous. It's so formal. Who's asking the question? Who's been appointed? So Chaim gets on and he says, question number one, Rabbi. Why in the world would you want to be a head of school? What's wrong with you? And that was the evening I met Chaim. But the funny thing is, he spent every Friday afternoon texting and emailing me, giving me every reason to take this job. And we keep joking, are you still in? You haven't backed out yet, right? You're going to call me if you back out, right? I'm going to fly down to see you. I'll fly up. You're still in, Rabbi? It's going to be great. It's going to be good. I went into Shabbos with such a smile, such a chizik that I received from him every single Friday. I still have all those messages. In a few weeks, we're going to revisit the story of Yosef and the brothers. And it's fascinating how when Yosef finally reveals himself after all those years to his brothers, he says 5 perplexing, difficult words. The Mefarshim have a hard time understanding it. And it's a common question that they ask. Ani Yosef ha'od avichai, those 5 words. I am Yosef, is my father still alive? So Nesiv Shalom says, what's going on over here? There was so many discussions between them back and forth. Yosef knew that his father was alive. What was he saying? I am Yosef, and the first thing that comes out of his mouth after saying that he's Yosef, Ha'od avichai, is my father still alive? So says the Nesiv Shalom something remarkable. Nesiv Shalom says, of course he knew that Yaakov was alive. But you see, when Yosef said, Ani Yosef, he was making a statement. He said, I'm still that Yosef that left you at the pit 22 years ago. I didn't change. I'm still that same boy. I haven't assimilated. That's the strong statement that he was making to the brothers. And they were going to right away ask, no, it can't be. It's impossible. Tell us you became Tut or Ramses, but you're not Yosef. How's that possible? So before they can even ask that question, he answered it for them. You know how? Ha'od avichai, because my father was always alive with me. Ani Yosef, I remained Yosef. You know how? Ha'od avichai, whether I knew physically or not he was alive, he was always alive with me. And says in Nesiv Shalom, the proof is when Rashi says, when he was about to sin with Potiphar's wife, Yukna Shel Yaakov, he saw the image of his father. So it says in Nesiv Shalom, you see that his father was with him every step of the way. So Nesiv Shalom goes on to say, this is why we say tzaddikim are still alive, even though they're not here physically. It's just the body. It's difficult for those of us who are left behind. But those people who are left behind can keep that person alive by remembering his lessons and what he stood for and what he taught and the impact that he had on the world and how he changed the world. So there is no doubt in my mind that Michelle will continue saying, Ani Michelle, ha'od Chaim Chai, Ani Al, ha'od Avi Chai. Ani Orli ha'od Avichai. Ani Ezra ha'od Avichai. Mrs. Rochelle Diamond will remember every day, ha'od b'ni chai. My son is still alive. There isn't a day that goes by in this institution where a teacher, an administrator, a student, a parent doesn't say, Chaim said this, but Chaim felt this. Chaim used to joke this. Chaim used to say that. Yeah, but Chaim used to think this, and that's why we did it. Chaim, 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 Chaim. How true what the Nesivos Shalom says. So here at KHDS, we say, Anachnu KHDS, Ha'ot Chaim Chai. Because Chaim is still alive with us. So in addition to meeting the administration, Dan had one more stop for me to make. He said, before we make this official, you have to meet another extraordinary person. And his name is Rabbi Shmuel Levine. And he told me about the tremendous contributions that Rabbi Levine, as the former head of school, community member, has made to this institution, to the community. And he said, I want you to meet him. And we had a lovely meeting in Dan's house where I felt so much more comfortable even that this was the right move for me and for my family. After meeting Rabbi Levine, I got to see firsthand his love for Jewish education, the Boca community, his incredible wisdom of guidance and being wise and knowing what to say and what to do. And from what I've heard, if Chaim would be asked who his mentor was, he would say it was Rabbi Levine. So at this time, we call upon Rabbi Levine to say a few words.
Thank you, Rabbi Sadiq. It just doesn't seem possible that we're here this evening to honor the memory of Chaim Diamond, Zichron Livracha. How can it be? If we close our eyes and think of Chaim, our mental image is of a man who maintained his youthful exuberance, his joie de vivre, a man who was vibrant, full of life, active and enthusiastic, kind of a young guy motoring around town in a Mustang, mufflers purring, announcing his coming and going. We see Chaim standing at the grill, outfitted in his apron, holding a spatula in one hand and a grilling fork in the other, greeting you and offering you the protein of your choice, unless, of course, that protein was soy, in which case you didn't have a chance. But then we open our eyes, and we're confronted with a profoundly sad reality. Chaim's physical presence is indeed gone, and the quality of our lives, personally and communally, has been greatly, greatly diminished. It wasn't supposed to be this way. You see, Chaim and I had a pact. This is true. The deal was that we were to age at a graceful pace, me somewhat ahead of him in the process. And at one point, it would be time for him to knock on my door on Shabbos mornings and wheel me to BRS in my wheelchair. We had this discussion, he agreed. And then he was to remain around until some distant point in the future to turn out the lights, so to speak. But that's not the way it played out. Our mortality intrudes, and on a daily basis, we learn that life is what happens while we make plans. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in his wisdom, had other plans for Chaim's precious neshama, and he took him so much before anybody could have thought, expected, or imagined. Chaim and I had a close and loving relationship. That could have been difficult to achieve as he worked for me. I hate the term, and of course it was never articulated, but I was his boss. But because the two of us shared a vision for Hillel, that vision helped create a bond that transcended our professional relationship. We were two educators and friends working towards a single goal. Chaim was a true educational leader, and God granted me a special gift when he placed him at my side and in the office next door to me. He had integrity, learning ability and learning agility, empathy and vision. He often expressed gratitude to me for the opportunities that life had granted him. He felt blessed to be in his position. He possessed a work ethic that was second to none. He had a vision for excellence. Our shared goal for Hillel was for it to be the best Jewish day school in America. How many times we said that to each other. And that was not hyperbole. It was real. Chaim believed that we could achieve our goal. The way to get there was to constantly strive to be better. Excellence was our destination, but Chaim was always on the road there. He never thought, even for one moment, that we had arrived. Competence just wasn't enough. Meeting standards was the lazy approach. The Torah tells us, "V'asita hayashar v'atov b'nei Hashem Elokecha," that you should do what is just and good in the eyes of Hashem. Rashi comments, what does it mean, "V'asita hayashar v'atov"? It says, "Lifnei misharas adin." It means going the extra mile, beyond standards, beyond what is expected. When it came to the education of children, Chaim believed in going beyond mere competence, beyond just meeting the standards. There's a huge difference between competence and excellence. By way of illustration, competence is a piece of music played by a practiced violin student. Excellence is that same piece of music played by a virtuoso. Chaim dreamed Hillel could educate the way Yitzchak Perlman plays. The view from his office was that there was always room for improvement. Chaim sought to develop a love of learning in young children. He sought to develop their critical thinking skills. Who can forget the many lunch periods he so enriched by playing the game, What Would You Rather? He would stand up here on the stage with his microphone and engage the children playing, what would you rather? Would you rather this or would you rather that? Critical thinking skill. I'll let you in on a trade secret. Most teachers will take any assignment other than lunch duty. You wouldn't believe the deal some teachers offered me over the years to avoid doing lunch duty. Chaim didn't run from lunch duty. He volunteered for it. He embraced it. A game of what you would rather during lunch stimulated higher-order thinking skills that are listed in Bloom's taxonomy. Even during their lunch, Chaim gave his students an opportunity to think critically and to grow intellectually. Chaim understood that as educators, we hold the future in our hands. He sought to help children develop their potential to become inspired, educated, spiritually committed Jews, even from the earliest age. Woe unto the person who called the education of our youngest students preschool. To Chaim, it was not preschool, it was real school. Teaching a 2-year-old was as important an educational enterprise as teaching AP Calculus or AP History. He passionately believed that without strong early childhood education, the rest of the educational structure could crumble. My favorite day at work was Thursdays. On Thursday morning, first thing after davening, Hadassah, Adam, Chaim, and I would meet in my office. It was there that we collaboratively measured and monitored the pulse of the school and charted the course of Katz Hillel Day School. The time we spent together was truly dear to us all. We agreed, we argued, we debated, and we created during that precious time. There was love and respect in that room. It was tangible. You could feel it, every one of us. I still remember after one particularly raucous session, walking out of the office only to hear Jill Kamenetsky say, "Nobody should have that much fun at work." I could go on and on. I could speak about Chaim's involvement in the greater community, about the stellar example he set for his family and children, for his advocacy on behalf of every child he was responsible for. Time, however, does not allow for this. Chaim, you left an indelible mark on this school. Chaim, you are missed by so many of the people because of the so many ways you influenced our lives. We are bereft and we miss you dearly. You are in the Olam HaEmet, in the world of truth. We sense your spirit, and you therefore know that the feelings and thoughts expressed here come from the innermost reaches of our hearts. Chaim, may you be a Melitz Yosher for our children and community, and may your soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. If you look in your programs, there is a plaque sitting up here in the front, and I encourage you to read it as we call on Michelle to please come forward for the presentation of the plaque. Michelle. And I think we need Rabbi Sadiq.
How do we talk about Chaim, Alav HaShalom, in past tense, when we still picture him so alive at KHDS? Everywhere we turn, there are remnants and fond memories to remind us of Chaim and his contributions to us all. We have lost an exceptional role model, principal, mentor, and cherished friend. Chazal tell us, tzaddikim b'misasan kruim Chaim. Righteous people, even when they depart this world, are considered alive because the impact and legacy that they leave on their families, friends, and students live on forever. Every Jew is irreplaceable, and at the same time, there are those special individuals whose contributions are so many and so valuable, whose character and deportment are so lofty and so inspiring that the pain of their loss is overwhelming. Chaim, his name alone, was his essence. Kishmo Kain Haya, as in the meaning of his name, so was he. He was the epitome of one who lived his life with joy, with a simchas hachaim, a joy of living life to the fullest. Chaim spelled his name uniquely with a Y, emphasizing the chai in his name. He was so full of life, and this was no coincidence to be named Chaim, as he was animated, vital, and lively. I was truly privileged to work with Chaim at KHDS for 22 years. What began as a professional relationship evolved into a deep and meaningful friendship. As a friend, he was trustworthy, honest, dependable, loyal, and a good listener. He was supportive and comfortable. to allow his friends to be vulnerable in front of him. And when he offered advice or suggestions, it was spoken from his heart. He empathized when empathy was necessary. He validated when validation was needed. And he always communicated with care and concern. As a leader, he was driven and inspired by what our institution could become. He had, unshakable determination and strong principles. He worked hard and constantly looked to be updated and to the most recent program with the most current improvements in education. He made sure to always keep everyone involved in the process. He was fair in dealing with his staff, constantly acknowledging the good. His mantra was to lead transformations, but not to dominate. Leaders must be tough enough to fight, tender enough to cry, human enough to make mistakes, humble enough to admit them, strong enough to absorb the pain, and resilient enough to bounce back and keep moving. This was our Chaim. As an administrator, he was a real example of a Renaissance man. A Renaissance man, by definition, is one who is knowledgeable, educated, and proficient in a wide range of fields. As an actor on stage, he entertained the students in his many performances. Who can forget his Purim plays and ad libs that kept the children in stitches? His grilling as an elective with middle school students was the most popular of electives as he shared his culinary expertise and love of food. Transportation Day was a favorite with the entire school, watching the interesting vehicles and the helicopter that Chaim procured for the day so that he could take a picture of the campus in the air. The Emet and Midot Wall of Fame were Chaim's creations, and they still carry the same momentum year after year. Every child who knew Chaim will miss his, and it's Emet time. Aunt Jessie's playground was his dream that came to fruition as he worried and stressed over every aspect of the playground to ensure that it would meet the needs of the students in every physical way. His fireworks, carpentry, and forging metal were some of his creative talents that he demonstrated to us all. Blowing shofar and Elul, hosting the fabulous Shabbat programs, Onegs, Instruments for Brand, and bringing Names Not Numbers to KHDS, which are some of the many, many programs the Chaim was dedicated to see through. Most of all, he loved to encourage others to be creative as well, and to be curious to learn new things that could enhance education and the talents of our children. He was the best example of a lifelong learner. He encouraged others to develop their ideas, and he motivated them to think out of the box. He was one of the most innovative administrators among our colleagues. On a personal level, I watched him up close. His method of talking to children when they erred was an inspiration to watch. He would sit at eye level and talk to the youngster as one would talk to an adult. After the conversation, when the child would admit a wrongdoing, Chaim would extend his hand and they would shake on it. Discipline with true dignity. At times, Chaim would deal with difficult situations and parents. He, as often administrators are, faced with having to make tough calls. I would watch as he would demonstrate bravado and firmness that might have come off as cold, but I knew the pain in his heart. I knew that he needed to be uncompromising. Years later, however, when Chaim would hear of the success of a former weak student, he would be emotionally charged, and I would see the full joy on his face as he gleaned nachas, much as a parent would feel for their very own child. I remember vividly the day Chaim came to tell me the news of his illness. He was encouraging me that everything would be okay. I was trying to hold back the tears on the tips of my eyelashes, and he begged me not to cry. I watched him as he suffered through surgeries and treatments, through the most trying circumstances, yet he wanted no pity. A lesson came to mind every time I saw the wince in his face of a violin. The tighter the violin strings are, the most exquisite is the music. Chaim was diagnosed in the prime of his life. He had every excuse to be bitter and broken. And yet, the more the illness progressed, the more his spirit soared. Chaim left, Chaim left us on Shabbos, Parshas Chukas, with a Misas Neshika. How apt was the Parsha that begins with the words, Zos Chukas HaTorah, this is the statute of the Torah. Rashi states on these words that the law of the Para Aduma are Gezerah hi milafanai, ein lecha reshus laharhir achareha. It is a decree from me, which I have issued, and you do not have the right to question it. Later in the same parsha, we hear of the passing of Aharon. Bnei Israel reached a breaking point. They cried, "Who will comfort us now? What will happen to us?" At the moment of Aharon's death, Bnei Israel saw the mountain, Har Hahar, whose name alludes to the word, hear her, doubtful thoughts. Upon the demise of Aharon, Bnei Israel had the kinds of thoughts we have when losing a loved one. At those times, we are at the greatest risk of falling prey to hear her, doubt. Parshas Chukas discusses the most mysterious mitzvah, that of the Para Aduma, when ashes purify those who come in contact with death. This is when we have to remember that even in the face of death, we keep our faith. Every impurity is followed by cleansing. Everything Hashem does, He does for the good. Chaim and Michelle were a team. Although faced with challenges, they maintained a positive outlook and a demeanor full of emunah and bitachon. They served as role models to us of love, support, and complete dedication. Al, Orly, and Ezra, you were the lights of your father's life, and he took tremendous pride in your achievements and accomplishments. Your father's neshama was taken from us, and although he is not here, his fine qualities, his tenacity, his love for his students, his family are for us to emulate. Chaim would want us to put forth our utmost efforts in all that we do and to live a life worth living. Yehi Zichro Baruch. At this time, I would like to mention that Mrs. Lisa Pincus, along with a select group of middle school students in her art class, are creating a mural to be painted prominently on the back wall of the cafeteria. Many events and programs that were uniquely Chaim's, Alav Hashalom, took place in this very room. So it is fitting that we memorialize Chaim in this space on the KHDS campus. Michelle, so many people have vivid memories, recollections, experiences, and precious moments that they wish to express and share with you and your beautiful children. A memory book was created and spearheaded by Miss Suzanne Rice and edited lovingly by Elise Cohn and Meira Gross, so that you will always be reminded of how Chaim impacted the lives of so many and how much he accomplished here in Boca Raton. Please come up to accept this book of cherished words and memories. And now for the video that was produced by Rabbi Smolarczyk and Havatish.
You're the light in the night. Don't stop giving love. Let your fire burn bright. Don't stop giving love. Are you building a wall? Building a room? Do you take for yourself? Give on your soul. Sometimes you get a feeling like you're closing your eyes to the sun that is rising. The those words need to hear. And you open a door that's kept you inside on your own. You're the light in the night. Don't stop giving love. Let your fire burn bright. Don't stop giving love. Love. Don't stop giving love. Love. From the shadows deep inside, allow yourself to be. You'll always be asking why. Don't stop giving it up. You're the light in the night. Don't stop giving love. Let your fire burn bright. Don't stop giving love. Love. Don't stop giving love. Love. Don't stop giving love. Love.
Something that's been very special to Michelle and Chaim Diamond over the years was a Segula Fund, initiated by Chaim and Michelle, which was geared towards alleviating the financial burdens of infertility treatment. Since KHDS offered the community an opportunity to honor Chaim's memory by making a donation to this worthy cause, to date, $37,234 has been raised. Truly, truly remarkable. If you look at the back of your programs, if you've not had a chance to do so, you may still contribute to this incredible, incredible cause. At this time, we're going to show you the next special tribute that's being made to Chaim Diamond Zatzal. I've heard so much about Chaim's favorite part of the day, which was standing in front of the lower school and greeting the children as they came out of the cars and arrived to school, and smiling and joking with them and letting them know that they're just going to have the most amazing day. So as you exit the building and you walk out and go to your cars, please stop for a moment in front of the elementary school building. And there you will see, right on the top, where the dedication has been made. And now it says in the entranceway, the Chayim Diamond Zatzal entryway. So what a way to leave, knowing that as we began the program and it was echoed by Rabbi Levine and Mora Hadassah, that our way of dealing with it is that Ha'od Chaim Chai, Chaim is still alive and is going to be with us in every way possible. So we say to all of you, thank you for being here and giving him the respect that he deserves. For the little time that I got to know him, I know that he made an impact on me. I can only imagine the years that he spent with all of you. May his memory be blessed. May his neshama continuously be elevated. And may we always share in smachot. Have a good evening.
Almost got out of it. Darn. Chaim was much better at this. He could talk off the cuff to a room full of people, and the people could be 2 years old or 92 years old. And I need a 30-point font. Lots of encouragement through Advil to get through it. Thankfully, the TED Talk people haven't called me any. So I appreciate you bearing with me. On the stage I'm standing on, Chaim orchestrated 22 years worth of Hanukkah plays, Pesach programs, Oneg Shabbats, first grade Siddur plays, and kindergarten graduations. The last one, just 4 months ago, where suffering from debilitating pain, he sat instead of stood, probably for the first time in his Hillel career, introducing each and every graduate. That morning, I tried to dissuade him from going. He could barely get out of bed, but he insisted. Summoning up the little energy he had and sweating with every aching muscle, he pushed through to attend his beloved kindergartner's huge milestone. That was his last kindergarten graduation, as he died 16 days later. Education was not what Chaim intended to do with his life. He'd been a horrible student. He had trouble reading and writing early on, and his teachers were not very patient or empathetic. When he was 6 years old, his first grade teacher called up his mother and told her, and please forgive me as this is a direct quote, "Mrs. Diamond, your son is retarded." Excuse the language, apparently in the 70s that was an acceptable term for learning disabilities. Unfortunately, his day school had no EDGAR program like here at KHDS, and he had years of struggling in school ahead of him. He somehow got through it with more understanding teachers and better suited lessons. So when he got older and it became time to pick a professional path, he didn't totally shy away from education, and he decided to open up a chain of daycare centers in New York City. There was one problem. He refused to sacrifice educational quality for the bottom line. The first childcare center he managed ended up being his last. When the CEO demanded he stuff into each classroom more kids with fewer unqualified staff, he knew he needed to get out and work at an environment that promoted quality learning. Thank God Hashem intervened when, out of the blue, our friend called to say a headhunter she spoke to was looking for an early childhood director for some day school in Boca Raton, Florida. Would she be interested? No, she said, but maybe Chaim would. To this day, we still have no idea how that headhunter got her number. When we flew down, how could we resist the stunning campus? Palm trees, gorgeous weather, a beautiful community sealed the deal. We didn't have kids yet, and this would be fun for 2 years, the term on his new contract. Then we'd go back to the tri-state area and start our real lives. Never did we think he'd love this new work environment so much, to fall in love with this school so much, that he'd be here for the rest of his life. But KHDS became his family. Most of us punch in and out of our jobs, living for a paycheck and the weekends. It's not an exaggeration to say Chaim truly jumped out of bed each morning, excited to start a new day, to see his teachers, his admin team, his beloved students. It also helped he was a morning person. Of course, he enjoyed the fun part of the job, giving out candies at Oneg, entertaining the kids by dressing up, letting the children pick Emmet prizes from the treasure chest, tasting every classroom's latke at Hanukkah time. It was a tough job, someone had to do it. But on the other hand, he knew he had a big responsibility as principal. He took it seriously, and it was a tough job at times, tasked with educating a mother or father's most valuable possession. What's more emotionally charged than a parent's love toward his or her child? Unfortunately, he lost a few friends along the way because of what he felt was the right call for a student educationally. But in Chaim's heart, he truly felt he was doing what was right for the child. He was doing his job. It helped that Chaim was good with kids. His nieces and nephews loved their uncle, and kids in general always seemed to find him. Once my friend visited me and brought her 5-year-old, who during our visit kept asking when he could go, when he could go. She kept pushing him off until realizing he hadn't been bothering her for a while. We walked into the other room to see him completely engrossed in a conversation with Chaim, as if they were two old friends hanging out. And when it was time to leave, he asked her if he could stay longer. He had found a great new playdate. Of all the things he did for KHDS, his favorites were those rare times he actually got to teach. One year he took on a first grade math group that he so enjoyed teaching. Another few years he got to teach the middle school boys' dinim class, including his own son, showing them how to make tzitzit. And for a few years he taught a barbecue elective, as Hadassah said, one for boys, one for girls, which he took very seriously, even getting each of the kids their own aprons and telling them if they didn't show up with it to class, they couldn't participate. I don't think a kid ever forgot theirs. He was very good at discipline, never raising his voice, just coming up with creative ways to teach kids valuable lessons. One time a child was sent to his office for not listening to the teacher and goofing off in class. Chaim very calmly told him he'd have to use his lunch and recess to make up for it. I want you to tell me how many tiles it took to complete the front hall lobby of the school building, he said. So the kid went and counted all the tiles and came back to Chaim with some answer. Nope, he said, that's not right, try again. So the boy went back to the front hall to start counting and came back with a different number. Nope, that's not it, he said. The boy tried again and came back exasperated. Mr. Diamond, I keep getting the same number. It has to be right. So Chaim looked at him and said, listen to my question carefully. How many tiles did it take to complete the front hall lobby? This time, the student got it. Oh, he said, 1. That's right. And next time you're in class, I hope you'll remember to listen more carefully to the teacher, and you'll think of what it feels like to waste other people's time. By the way, I apologize if that student is attending or listening. I have no idea who he is. And I hope he's not too scarred. Wasting people's time was definitely something he hated. Thus, as anyone who's ever had a meeting with him can attest, Chaim was extremely punctual, and he ran his programs and meetings like clockwork. If he said a meeting would last an hour, you could count on it. The other night, Orly and I found an old Zoom recording of a teacher meeting he'd made 2 summers ago about COVID protocols. He recorded it. In the recording, he began by saying he wanted to start the meeting on time, especially because he didn't feel right to take away from the teachers' summer vacations. When the video recording ended, Orly pointed out to me that the counter at the bottom of the video read exactly 59 minutes and 56 seconds. Typical Chaim. I'm sure right now he's pointing at his watch and saying, Michelle, hurry up, people want to go home. Chaim put a lot of energy into his teachers. He knew how hard they worked. He tried to show his appreciation toward them daily. He expected a lot, but he gave much in return. Sitting in on classes, meeting consistently one-on-one and in groups, calling after hours and on weekends to check in. He didn't want teachers to burn out doing the same things year after year, so he asked them what exciting new projects they wanted to spearhead. He held educational book clubs at his house, barbecuing dinner for whoever signed up, so they all could enjoy a home-cooked meal while discussing what they learned from the books. Everyone was always surprised I had nothing to do with the cooking. A letter one of the teachers wrote me after he passed away said he helped shape her into the teacher she is today. He showed me, she wrote, how to take risks and be vulnerable and step outside my comfort zone. He supported me in all my ideas, and I was so blessed to work for him. I hope he knew how much he meant to me. His mentor, Jane Cohn, said in a speech to those training to become coaches, quote, Chaim was extremely open and craved feedback so that he could self-improve. He asked hard questions of himself and was willing to hear the feedback and take it in. He was tenacious. You could not stop him from getting things done, making things happen, and driving toward his goals and the goals of the school. He loved the teachers he worked with. He loved the children. I would say that even when things got bad physically for Chaim, he would do his best to still do the job he loved. He hated thinking others were taking up the slack for his not being there because of his illness. One day, I came home to find his visiting nurse hooking him up to an IV pole. He put out his right arm and let her do her thing, while his other hand held onto the phone, participating in an admin meeting. He worked on school stuff always, even while supposedly incapacitated. But he still had terrible guilt for not being more available his last year at school when he became ill. He told Jane, his mentor, the week before he died, about how angry he was with himself about this. She said, Chaim told me just last week he feels he failed the school this year. He said that he abandoned the teachers during their hardest year. I asked him what he would tell a friend who was suffering the way he was, who said that by not being in school he was failing. He paused and said, what I expect of others is not what I expect of myself. So why dedicate the lower school building entryway in his memory? Many KHDS parents, students, and alumni have told me that they have vivid memories of him at around 8 a.m., standing in front of the lower school building front doors, greeting everyone. Over the years, there were children who had a harder time walking into school and needed more help, and he was there to make it easier by personally escorting them inside. Some of the younger students insisted Mr. Diamond stop everything he was doing, take their hands, and walk them into class. As alumni Sarah and Pearl Katz told me recently, thinking of him standing in that spot at 8 a.m. every morning, he was Hillel. That's why that seemed like the perfect place to think of him, the lower school building entryway, a very visible reminder of his presence. And why the Segula Fund? I apologize if you've heard this story before. The first Shabbos we came down in 1998-99 to meet some of the parents in the school, Chaim was grilled. After an hour of him in the hot seat, a dad turned to me and said, I'd like to ask her a question. Stenda had no idea what he would possibly ask me, and I knew nothing about education or children. Why'd you marry him? He asked. Totally put on the spot and not entirely sure how to respond, I answered honestly from my heart because I knew he'd be a wonderful father. And I was right. But getting there was not so easy. And after years of fertility treatments with BRS rabbis Brander and Goldberg, we decided to create the Segula Fund to help other couples trying to start their families. We also wanted to thank Hashem for blessing us with 3 beautiful children. The Segula Fund helps add to the Jewish nation another perfect connection to children, the education of children, and Chaim's role here at KHDS. But enough about Chaim. Let's talk about Daniel and Caroline Katz, the visionaries who made tonight a reality. Sadly, they are going through their own Avelis and could not be here tonight. However, after Chaim died, Dan called me throughout the summer to check on me and the kids, which he and Caroline did frequently. He said he was adamant that Chaim not be forgotten, and he told me his and Caroline's idea of dedicating the entryway in his honor and tying in the Segula Fund as part of that. He wanted our connection of building the Jewish nation through our Segula Fund to continue and to make certain there was a visibility at his second home to remind us of his love for KHDS and the Jewish education. It was a beautiful and perfect connection to the life Chaim led, always about Yiddishkeit and children. They are making this dedication so very special and meaningful, and it is all due to their kindness and generosity. Thank you, Rabbi Sadiq, for your kind words. Chaim was truly excited to work with you. From your brief meetings, he could tell you would not only make an excellent boss, but a great leader for KHDS. Thank you, Rabbi Levine. You've not only been an unbelievable role model for Chaim, but a father figure. He greatly looked up to you and learned from you so many valuable lessons. Hadassah, oh Hadassah. You and Chaim were two peas in a pod, dynamic duo, forced to be reckoned with. He loved you so much and treasured you as his counterpart. I don't have words to give your relationship justice. Thank you, Suzanne, Rabbi Smolarczyk, Meira, and Elise for all your hard work in making tonight a success. You have always been such wonderful doers for the school and personal friends of mine and Chaim. One last thought before I end. I've always felt the two words, thank you, are really such a pitiful way of communicating gratefulness. I say thank you to the waiter filling my glass. I thank the cashier giving me my change. I say thank you to the operator connecting me to the right department. They do all deserve thanks, but how can I use those same words to also thank the neighbors who came over every Friday night to visit with my sick husband because he couldn't leave the house? How can I merely say thank you to the brothers-in-law who helped my son with Ivrit homework because I needed to finish the speech? How can I simply say thank you to the friends who pulled off an HGTV makeover on my house while I was away in the summer, just in an attempt to lift my spirits? Or to the rabbis who treated Chaim as their friend before their congregant? Or the sisters-in-law who flew down for weeks at a time to take care of their brother, or the high school friends who whisked me away for a girls' weekend, or the friends who threw together an afternoon of Shiva for the burial in Israel, or the neighbors who used their handyman skills to fix my door, or the friends who offered the garage for an impractical 1967 Mustang that a man really loved once. It can go on and on as it continues to do so, but I will simply say tonight from the bottom of my heart, to all of the family and friends, loved ones here and around the globe, these completely insufficient words. Thank you. Now you can go home.
Thank you, Michelle. Just before we go, I also want to thank Rabbi Eisenberger for all the tech help and everything else he did to put this together. At this time, if anybody needs to daven Marv with us, we're going to be in the back and have a Marv minyan. Maybe share only in Smachot. Thank you.